The silence on the left side of the aisle was not an accident. It was a verdict. I stood there in a dress that cost $3,000, watching the groom's family fill the room with warmth, while my side remained a row of empty chairs. My father did not just miss the ceremony, and my mother did not just forget the date. They coordinated a ghost town to remind me that even 300 miles away, they still owned me. The light that came through the sheer curtains of the bridal suite was gray and thin, the color of dirty dishwater. It was 4 a.m. I had not slept. I lay perfectly still in the center of the king-sized bed, listening to the hum of the hotel ventilation system and the distant, rhythmic thrum of traffic on the highway that wound around the edges of Harbor Ridge. Today was the day I was supposed to become a new person. Today was the day Ellie Young stopped being the girl who ran away from Maple Crest and started being a wife, a partner, a woman with a solid, unshakable foundation. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. The movement was a reflex, a nervous tic I had developed over the last 3 weeks. The screen lit up the dark room, blindingly bright. No new notifications. I unlocked it and opened the text thread with my father. It was a one-way street. My thumb hovered over the last message I had sent, the blue bubble sitting there in the silence of the digital void. I had typed it out carefully, rewriting it a dozen times before hitting send 3 weeks ago. It would mean everything if you came. I read it again. It sounded desperate now. It sounded like a little girl begging for a scrap of attention, and I hated that I had sent it. But I also knew that if I had not sent it, I would have wondered for the rest of my life if a simple invitation was all that stood between me and my family. I sat up, pulling the heavy duvet around my shoulders. The air in the suite was chilled. My dress hung on the back of the door, a silhouette of white lace and tulle that looked like a ghost waiting to be inhabited. I stared at it. I had paid for it myself, just like I had paid for the venue, the flowers, and the catering. Every dollar had been earned through 60-hour weeks at the marketing firm where I had rebuilt my career from scratch. I had not asked my father for a dime. I had not asked my mother for help with the planning. I wanted to show them that I was strong, that I was capable, and that I was happy. I just wanted them to see me. By 6 o'clock, the sun had burned off the gray fog, revealing a crisp, bright October morning. It was perfect wedding weather, the kind of day brides prayed for. I showered, scrubbing my skin until it was pink, trying to wash away the feeling of dread that had settled in the pit of my stomach like a cold stone. My phone remained silent. I arrived at the venue at 8. It was a restored industrial loft overlooking the river, with exposed brick walls and high beams wrapped in twinkling lights. It was beautiful. It was everything I wanted. But as soon as I walked through the double doors, I saw the tension in the shoulders of my wedding coordinator, a sharp and organized woman named Sarah, who usually moved with the grace of a ballerina. Sarah saw me and forced a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Ellie," she said, her voice a little too bright. "You are early. Is everything okay?" I asked. I could feel the tremor in my own voice. Sarah hesitated. She looked at her clipboard, then back at me. "We have had a small hiccup with the florist." "What kind of hiccup?" "The boutonnieres for the groomsmen and the fathers are missing." Sarah said, "And the centerpieces for tables 4, 5, and 6 have been altered." "Altered?" I frowned. "I did not ask for any alterations." "I know," Sarah said. She looked pained. "The florist insists that someone called yesterday afternoon to confirm changes. They said the budget needed to be trimmed and to cut the boutonnieres and reduce the table arrangements." I felt a flash of heat go up my neck. I did not call anyone. I paid the florist in full 2 months ago. There was no budget to trim. Sarah sighed and tapped the screen of her tablet. "That is what I told them, but they forwarded me the confirmation email." She turned the tablet toward me. I stared at the screen. It was an email chain. The sender name at the top was Ellie Young. The email address looked like mine. The profile picture was a tiny, pixelated version of my engagement photo. The text of the email was brief and professional. "Please cancel the boutonnieres and reduce the arrangements on the family tables. We are looking to save costs where possible. Thank you. I stared at the words. I had never written them. I had never even thought them. This is not me, I said. I looked at Sarah. Sarah, I did not write this. Sarah looked at me, her expression softening into pity. It is okay. Ellie, wedding stress makes people do strange things. We can try to— I am not stressed, I snapped, then immediately lowered my voice. I am not stressed. I am telling you, I did not send this. Look at the timestamp. 2:00 yesterday? I was at the rehearsal dinner. My phone was in my purse the whole time. Sarah took the tablet back. Okay, I believe you. We will figure it out. We will pull flowers from the ceremony arch to make the boutonnieres. It will be fine. It will be fine. I repeated the words to myself as I walked to the bridal suite at the back of the venue. It was just a mistake, a glitch. Someone at the flower shop clicked the wrong name in their database. It happened. But as I sat in the makeup chair, watching my face be painted into a mask of flawless joy, I could not shake the feeling that the email was not an error. It was specific. It targeted the flowers for the men, including my father, and the tables reserved for my family. My phone sat on the vanity, still silent. By 1 p.m, the guests began to arrive. I could hear the murmur of voices from the bridal suite. I peeked through the blinds. I saw Sam's family immediately. They were a loud, boisterous clan from Ohio, people who laughed with their whole bodies and hugged like they meant it. His mother was wearing a navy blue dress I had helped her pick out, and she was already crying, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. His brothers were slapping each other on the back. They looked solid. They looked real. Then I looked for my people. I scanned the arriving cars. I looked for my father's silver sedan. I looked for my brother's red truck. I looked for the beat-up Honda my cousin managed to keep running. I saw friends from work. I saw my old college roommate. I saw neighbors from my apartment building. But I did not see a single face from Maple Crest. My stomach twisted so hard, I thought I might be sick. I sat back down on the velvet sofa, my hands shaking in my lap. They were late, that was all. My father was always punctual, bordering on obsessive. But maybe there was traffic. Maybe a tire blew out. Maybe they were all driving together and got lost. Check the traffic, I told my maid of honor. Julie. She looked up from steaming her dress. What? Check the traffic from Maple Crest? Please? Julie pulled out her phone. She tapped a few keys, then shook her head. It is all clear. L. Green all the way down the interstate. I swallowed dryly. Okay, they are just running behind. 2:00 came. The ceremony was scheduled for 2:30. Sam came to the door of the suite. He was not supposed to see me yet, but he knocked and called my name through the wood. Ellie, are you okay? I walked to the door and cracked it open, hiding my body behind it so he could only see my face. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, his dark hair neatly combed, his eyes full of concern. I am fine, I lied. My mom is asking if your parents are here yet. He said gently, she wants to coordinate the seating for the front row. I felt the blood drain from my face. They are on their way, I said. They hit some traffic. Just tell her to leave the seats open. They will be here. Sam studied my face. He knew my relationship with my family was strained. He knew I had left home at 22 and rarely looked back, but he did not know the depth of the silence. He did not know about the money, the control, the way my father used affection as a currency that could be devalued overnight. Okay, Sam said. I will tell her. I love you. I love you too. I closed the door and leaned my forehead against the cool wood. Please, I whispered, please just show up. You do not have to be nice. You do not have to be happy. Just be here. 2:30 arrived. The music started. A string quartet playing a soft, melodic version of a song Sam and I loved. Julie opened the door. It is time. Ellie. I walked out into the hallway. The venue coordinator was there, holding a headset. Everyone is seated, she whispered. I nodded. I gathered my skirt in my hands. The bouquet of white roses trembled in my grip. I took a deep breath, trying to expand my lungs against the tight boning of the bodice. I walked to the entrance of the ceremony space. The double doors were closed. I could hear the music swelling. Then the doors opened. The light hit me first, golden and hazy. Then I saw the faces. Rows and rows of people turned toward me, smiling. Phones raised to capture the moment. I looked to the right. Sam was there, standing at the altar, looking at me with a love that felt like a physical embrace. His side of the room was packed, every seat filled. Then I looked to the left. The first row was empty. The second row was empty. The third row, where my aunts and uncles and cousins should have been, was a gap-toothed smile of vacant chairs. A few friends were scattered in the back rows of the bride's side. But the front, the place of honor, the place that signaled to the world who you belonged to, was a void. No mother, no father, no brother. Not even the cousin who had texted me last week to ask about the dress code. The silence from that side of the room was louder than the music. It was a vacuum, sucking the air out of the space. I faltered. My foot hovered in the air for a fraction of a second too long. I saw the confusion ripple through the guests on the groom's side. I saw Sam's mother lean forward, her brow furrowed, looking at the empty seats and then at me. I wanted to turn around. I wanted to run back to the suite, lock the door, and scream until my throat bled. I wanted to tear the dress off and burn it. But then I looked at Sam. He was not looking at the empty chairs. He was looking at me. He was anchoring me. And I thought of my father. I thought of his coldness. I thought of the way he would smirk if he knew I had run away. He would say, "See, she is unstable. She cannot follow through." I would not give him that satisfaction. I forced my chin up. I stretched my lips into a smile that felt like it was made of glass. Brittle, sharp, ready to shatter. I tightened my grip on the bouquet until the stems crunched. I walked, one step, then another. I walked past the empty chairs. I did not look at them. I treated them as if they were filled with ghosts. I focused entirely on Sam. I walked through the humiliation, letting it wash over me like scalding water, refusing to flinch. When I reached the altar, Sam took my hands. His palms were warm. He squeezed my fingers. A silent message. "I have you." The ceremony passed in a blur. I said the words. I exchanged the rings. I kissed the man who was now my husband. But a part of me was still standing at the back of the room, staring at the empty front row, trying to understand why I wasn't worth a single hour of their time. After the ceremony, we moved to the terrace for photos. The photographer was cheerful, directing us into poses, trying to keep the energy high. "Okay, let's get the family photos," she chirped. "Bride's parents first." The silence that followed was heavy and terrible. "My parents aren't here," I said. My voice sounded flat, robotic. "Oh," the photographer said. She lowered her camera. "Oh, I am so sorry. Did they get stuck? We will just do the couple shots." Sam cut in, stepping between me and the photographer. I stepped away, pretending to adjust my veil. I needed a moment. I needed to breathe. I walked to the edge of the terrace, looking out over the river. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of bruised purple and orange. I pulled my phone from the hidden pocket of my dress. One voicemail. It was from my father. The timestamp read 4:12 a.m. He had called me while I was lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling. I pressed the phone to my ear. The recording started with a burst of static. Then his voice. It sounded tight, constrained, not angry, but formal, like he was reading from a script or speaking in a room where he didn't want to be overheard. "Ellie," he said. There was a pause, a breath. "Don't do this today." That was it. Then a sharp click, like he had hung up mid-sentence, or like someone had taken the phone from him. "Don't do this today. Not we are not coming. Not I am sorry. Just a command, a warning." I replayed it. His voice sounded older than I remembered. There was a tremor in it that I had never heard before. My father was a man of iron. He did not tremble. "Ellie?" I jumped. Sam was behind me. "Hey," I said, shoving the phone back into my pocket. Are you okay? He asked. He put his hands on my shoulders, turning me to face him. I am fine, I said again. It was my mantra for the day. You are a terrible liar, Sam said softly. But you look beautiful. I buried my face in his chest, inhaling the scent of his cologne and the starch of his shirt. I held on to him, trying to borrow his stability. The reception was a blur of noise and light. The band was playing, people were drinking, and the room was filled with the kind of joy that usually made me happy. But tonight, it felt like I was watching it through a thick pane of glass. I sat at the head table, picking at my dinner. The empty seats at the reserved family table had been quietly removed by the staff during the cocktail hour. The gaps filled in by shifting other tables. It was a kindness, but it felt like a cover-up. I stood up to go to the bar. I needed water. I needed clarity. The bartender, a young guy with a ponytail, smiled as I approached. Water? He guessed. Please, as he filled a glass. I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. An older man was standing at the far end of the bar. He was wearing a gray suit that looked expensive but out of style, the kind of suit a man wears to church or a funeral. He was not a guest. I had never seen him before. He slid a white envelope across the mahogany counter toward the bartender. For the bride, the man said. His voice was gravelly. Only to the bride. The bartender looked confused but took the envelope. The man turned and walked away, moving with a quick, efficient stride toward the exit. Hey, I called out. The man did not look back. He pushed through the doors and was gone. The bartender looked at me, holding the envelope. I think this is for you. I took it. It was a plain white business envelope. No name, no address. It felt light. I didn't want to open it at the bar. I turned and walked quickly toward the hallway that led to the restrooms. It was quieter there, the music muffled by the thick walls. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely tear the flap. I ripped the paper, pulling out a single sheet of standard printer paper. It was a screenshot, a color printout of a group text message thread. The names at the top of the thread were Mom, Dad, Matt, and Aunt Lisa. The sender was labeled as me. The message read, "The wedding is off. I cannot go through with it. I don't want any of you there. Please just stay away. I need space. Do not contact me. I will reach out when I'm ready." The timestamp was yesterday, 6 p.m. I stared at the paper. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I had not sent this. I looked at the message again. It was written in a way that sounded like me, or rather, a version of me that was distressed and volatile. But I had been at the rehearsal dinner at 6 o'clock. My phone had been in my bag, and my family, my mother, my father, my brother, they had received this, and they had believed it, or they had pretended to believe it. They hadn't called to check. They hadn't tried to stop me. They had just accepted the disinvitation and stayed home. Why? Why would someone do this? Who would do this? I looked closely at the screenshot. The interface looked like an iPhone, which I had, but there was something off. The battery icon in the corner of the screenshot was red, showing 5%. My phone was always charged. I was meticulous about it. I folded the paper and shoved it into the bodice of my dress. Against my skin, it felt like a burning coal. I walked back into the reception hall. The band was playing a fast song, and the dance floor was packed. I tried to walk normally. I tried to smile at a coworker who waved at me, but my legs felt numb. Sam found me near the cake table. He took one look at me, and his smile vanished. He took my arm and pulled me gently into a quiet corner, away from the speakers. "Ellie," he said. His voice was low, serious. "Look at your hands." I looked down. My hands were vibrating. I clasped them together, trying to stop it, but the tremor traveled up my arms. "Tell me what you are not saying," Sam said. I looked at him. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to show him the paper. I wanted to play him the voicemail. But the words stuck in my throat. If I said it out loud, it became real. If I said it out loud, I admitted that my family didn't just abandon me. They were participants in something cruel. I don't know. I whispered, "I don't know what is happening." Sam pulled me into a hug, shielding me from the room. "We will figure it out," he said into my hair. "Tomorrow. We will figure it out tomorrow." But I knew tomorrow would be too late. That night, back in the hotel room, after Sam had fallen asleep from exhaustion, I sat on the floor in my wedding dress. The skirt was pooled around me like a cloud of white foam. I held the piece of paper in my hand. I had the voicemail queued up on my phone. I looked at the timestamp on the screenshot. 6 p.m. I looked at the timestamp on the voicemail. 4:12 a.m. If I had canceled the wedding at 6 p.m., why did my father call me 10 hours later to say, "Don't do this"? If he thought the wedding was off, why was he warning me? He knew. He knew I hadn't sent that text. He knew I was still planning to walk down that aisle. The silence of the room pressed in on me. This wasn't just a family dispute. This wasn't just petty drama or a grudge. This was a machine. Someone had accessed my accounts or spoofed my number. Someone had coordinated with the florist. Someone had intercepted my family, and my family had let them. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. The bride in the glass looked small and terrified, but beneath the fear, I felt something else kindling, a small, hot spark of rage. They thought they could break me. They thought that by emptying the chairs, they could empty me of my resolve. They thought that by silencing me, they could make me disappear. I touched the cold glass of the window. "You missed the wedding. Dad," I whispered to the empty room, "but you are going to wish you had come." Because now I was paying attention, and I was going to find out exactly what you were so afraid of. The morning after my wedding did not feel like the first day of a new life. It felt like the scene of an accident after the ambulances have driven away. The hotel room was too quiet, the remnants of the celebration, the garment bag holding my dress, the scattered hairpins on the vanity, the half-drunk bottle of champagne, looked like evidence. Sam was already awake. He was sitting in the armchair by the window, watching me with a stillness that told me he had been awake for a long time. He held a cup of coffee in his hands, but he wasn't drinking it. "Good morning," he said. His voice was low, careful. I sat up, the sheet pooling at my waist. The memory of the empty chairs hit me instantly, a physical blow to the chest. I reached for my phone before I even answered him. "Good morning," I whispered. I did not look at Instagram. I did not look at the photos my friends had tagged me in. I went straight to the keypad. I dialed my mother first. The phone rang 4 times, the standard ringtone echoing in my ear, before it clicked over. "You have reached the voicemail of Linda Young. Please leave a message." Her voice sounded cheerful on the recording, a stark contrast to the silence she had gifted me yesterday. I hung up without speaking. I could not leave a message. I did not know what to say that wouldn't sound like begging. I dialed my brother. Matt. Matt was 2 years younger than me. We had survived our father's house together. We had secret codes, hidden looks across the dinner table, a shared understanding of how to navigate the minefield of our parents' expectations. He would not ignore me. He couldn't. The phone rang. Once, twice, then it picked up. "Hello?" His voice was cold. It wasn't the voice of my brother. It was the voice of a stranger who had been stopped on the street. "Matt," I said, the relief flooding my throat so hot it burned. "Matt, what happened? Where were you? I waited for... You made it clear we weren't wanted." "Ellie?" he interrupted. I froze. "What?" "Don't play dumb," he said. He sounded tired, and under the fatigue, there was a hard edge of anger I had never heard directed at me. "You sent the messages. You said you didn't want us there. You said we were an embarrassment. So we stayed away. We did exactly what you asked." I gripped the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. "Matt, I never sent any messages. I swear to you. I was standing there waiting for you. Stop," he snapped. "Just stop. I have the texts. Ellie. I read them to Mom. She cried for 3 hours. Dad didn't say anything. Which is worse. You got what you wanted. You are married. You are free of us. So just let it be. Matt, listen to me. Good luck, Ellie." The line went dead. I stared at the phone. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Sam was by my side in an instant. What did he say? He thinks I told them not to come, I said, my voice trembling. He said I sent texts. He said I called them an embarrassment. Call him back. Sam said firmly, tell him to send you the screenshots. I tried. It went straight to voicemail. He had blocked me. I looked at Sam, panic rising in my throat. He blocked me. Sam, he blocked me. Use my phone, Sam said. He unlocked his device and handed it to me. Text him. Tell him to send the proof or you are driving to Maple Crest right now. I took Sam's phone. My fingers shook as I typed the number I knew by heart. Matt, it's Sam's phone. I did not send those messages. Someone is lying to you. Please, if you ever loved me, send me the screenshots. I need to see what you think I said. We waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. The hotel room felt like a pressure cooker. Then, a vibration. An image loaded on Sam's screen. Then another. Then a third. I looked at them, and I felt the blood drain from my face. The contact name at the top was Ellie. The number was my number. But the words... I don't know why I invited you people. I have built a life here that has nothing to do with Maple Crest. You stick out. You are loud. You judge everything. Just stay home. Seriously. If you show up, security will turn you away. I don't want to see your faces on my day. Consider this the end of it. I am done pretending we are a happy family. I read the words out loud, my voice cracking. Sam leaned in, reading over my shoulder. Jesus, he whispered. That's not me. I said. I looked at him, desperate for him to believe me. Sam, I don't talk like that. I don't use those words. You stick out? Security will turn you away? That sounds like a villain in a bad movie. That sounds like someone writing a character. Sam finished. He took the phone from me and zoomed in on the image. Look at the timestamp. 7:30 in the evening, the night before the wedding. We were at the rehearsal dinner. I said, my phone was in my clutch. It was under the table. Let's check your phone. Sam said, right now. He grabbed my phone from the bedspread. He opened the message app. He scrolled through the history. There was nothing to Matt. Nothing to my parents since the week before. He checked the unknown senders folder. He checked the recently deleted folder. Empty. If you had sent them and deleted them, there would be a trace in the cloud backup unless you scrubbed that too. Sam said, he looked at me, his eyes sharp with focus. And you were sitting next to me at 7:30. You were laughing at my dad's toast. You weren't mass texting your family to tell them to go to hell. It's spoofing. I said, the word tasted like ash. Someone spoofed my number. But why? Sam asked. Why go to this much trouble just to ruin a wedding? This isn't a prank. Ellie, this is surgical. This is designed to sever the relationship permanently. I stood up. I couldn't sit still. I needed to move. I paced the length of the hotel room, the plush carpet feeling soft and sickening under my bare feet. We need to find out how they did it, I said. I sat at the small desk in the room and opened my laptop. I logged into my email. Nothing in the sent folder. I checked my social media. Nothing. Then I remembered the florist. I grabbed my phone and dialed the number for the floral shop. It was Sunday, but I knew the owner often came in to prep for Monday deliveries. She answered on the third ring. Hello? Hi, this is Ellie Young? Ellie Miller. I corrected myself, the new name feeling strange and heavy on my tongue. From yesterday's wedding at the loft. Oh, the owner said. Her tone cooled instantly. I hope you were satisfied with the adjustments you requested. I wasn't, I said, keeping my voice steady, because I didn't request them. I need you to tell me exactly how those changes were made. There was a pause. I have the email. Mrs. Miller. It came from your account. Read me the address. I said, the exact address. I heard the clicking of a keyboard. It is right here. E. Young. Design89@gmail.com. My heart skipped a beat. My email address was Ellie Young, design89@gmail.com. They missed the LI. I said, it is one letter off. It's not my email. The florist was silent for a moment, but the woman called. She called 10 minutes after the email to confirm I received it. She said she was you. She sounded stressed. She apologized for the late notice. What did she sound like? I asked. Like you, the florist said, sounding defensive now. She sounded young, American. She knew the order number. She knew about the specific roses we were using. I thanked her and hung up. I stared at the wall. She knew the order number. I said to Sam. She knew the details. Sam was already typing on his own laptop. I am calling Mark, he said. Mark was Sam's college roommate, a cybersecurity consultant who lived in a basement apartment in Seattle and thought paranoia was a healthy lifestyle choice. Put him on speaker, I said. A moment later, Mark's voice filled the room. Congratulations, lovebirds. Why are you calling me on your honeymoon? We have a problem. Sam said. He explained everything. The spoofed texts, the fake email, the impersonator. Mark whistled low. That is not a script, Kitty. He said, that is intimate. To spoof a number so it convinces the family. You usually need to swap the SIM card or have access to the carrier account. But to create a fake email that looks that close and then follow up with a voice call? That is social engineering. That is someone who knows you. Check your logins, Mark commanded. Go to your Google account security page. Look at the devices. I did as he asked. My hands were trembling again. I see my phone, I said. I see my laptop. I stopped. What? Sam asked. There is a Windows desktop. I said. Logged in 4 months ago. Location? Maple Crest? Maple Crest? Sam repeated. Who in Maple Crest has your password? No one. I said. I changed all my passwords when I moved here. Look at the recovery options, Mark said. I clicked the tab. Under recovery email. There was an address I didn't recognize. admin@ct-escrow.net. It had been added 6 months ago. I stared at the screen. What is CT Escrow? I asked. Sam pulled up a search engine. He typed it in. Crestfield Title Escrow. He read, based in Maple Crest, Ohio. My stomach dropped. That is a local business. My dad knows the owner. Mr. Henderson. They play golf together. Why would a title company be the recovery email for your personal Gmail? Mark asked. I don't know. I whispered. I don't know. Change everything, Mark said. Now. 2-factor authentication on everything. Call your cell carrier and put a PIN on the account so no one can swap your SIM. And Ellie? Yeah? Whoever did this has been watching you for a long time. This wasn't about the wedding. They had access 4 months ago. They could have messed with you anytime. They waited until you were about to change your legal status. The line went dead. I sat there, the laptop screen glowing in the dim room. They waited. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my father. I stared at the name Dad on the screen, a word that used to mean safety and now meant danger. We need to talk. Not on the phone. I didn't reply immediately. I watched the 3 little dots appear and disappear as he typed more. Meet me at the Starlight Diner on Route 9. Halfway. Tomorrow at noon. Just you. I showed the phone to Sam. You are not going alone, Sam said. He says just me. I said, I don't care what he says, Sam said, his voice hard. I will sit in a different booth. I will wait in the car. But you are not going near that man without me. I nodded. I didn't want to be alone with him either. I stood up and walked to the window. Harbor Ridge looked peaceful below. The city waking up. People going to brunch. Living normal lives where their families didn't operate like covert intelligence agencies. If this is manipulation, Sam asked from the desk, what are they trying to stop? I turned to look at him. What do you mean? I mean, usually, when families go nuclear, it is emotional, Sam said. They scream, they throw things, they boycott. But this? Faking emails? Hacking accounts? Spoofing numbers? This takes time. This takes planning. It costs money. People don't invest this kind of effort just to hurt your feelings. They do it to protect something. He looked at me. What happens when you get married? Ellie? I don't know. We live together. We file taxes together. You change your name. Sam said, you become Ellie Miller. You get a new social security card. You get a new passport. You disappear from the old records and start new ones. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. You think they are trying to stop me from changing my name? I think someone panicked. Sam said, and I think we need to find out why. We checked out of the hotel an hour later. We drove back to our apartment in the city, the silence in the car heavy and thick. I need to go to the bank, I said as we passed the downtown branch of my bank. On a Sunday? Sam asked. It's inside the grocery store. I said, they are open until 2. I need to make sure they didn't access my money. Sam waited in the car. I walked into the bank branch, the fluorescent lights humming overhead. The teller, a woman named Sarah who always asked about my dog, smiled when she saw me. Hi, Ellie. How was the big day? It was memorable, I said, forcing a smile. I actually need to check on something, I said, leaning against the counter. I had some weird activity on my email. I just want to make sure my accounts are locked down. Can we add a verbal password? Of course, Sarah said. She typed quickly. I can set that up. She paused. Her fingers stopped moving. She frowned at the screen. What? I asked, my pulse quickening. She lowered her voice. Ellie, did you recently apply for a second line of credit? No, I said. I definitely did not. She turned the screen slightly away from the customer line behind me. There is an inquiry here from last week. A pretty substantial home equity line request. It was flagged because the address didn't match your current apartment. But the applicant had your social, your mother's maiden name, and your previous employment history. What address was it? I asked. It is listed as a property in Maple Crest. Sarah said, 402 Oak Street. That's my parents' house. I said. Sarah looked uncomfortable. The application was withdrawn yesterday morning, but the system shows it was authorized by a digital signature. I felt sick. Can you print it? I can't print the withdrawn application, but I can print the inquiry record. You should probably freeze your credit. Ellie, like, today. I walked back to the car holding the folded piece of paper like it was a loaded gun. They tried to take out a loan. I told Sam as I climbed in, against my name, using my parents' address. Sam gripped the steering wheel. And they withdrew it yesterday? Right before the wedding. I said, right before they ghosted me. We drove the rest of the way home in silence. Our apartment was on the 3rd floor of a converted brick building. It was our sanctuary. We had painted the walls a soft sage green. We had bought a rug we couldn't really afford. It was the place where I had finally felt safe, but as I walked up the stairs, I felt a strange vibration of wrongness. There was no mail on Sundays. But when I reached our door, there was a thin manila folder sticking out of the mail slot. It had no postage, no return address, just my name, Ellie, typed on a label in the center. I froze. Sam, I said. He came up behind me. He saw the folder. Don't touch it, he said. I have to. I said. I pulled it from the slot. It was light. I unlocked the door and we went inside, locking the deadbolt behind us immediately. I laid the folder on the kitchen island. Sam stood on the other side, his arms crossed. Open it, he said. I lifted the cover. Inside was a single document, a photocopy. It was an application for a term life insurance policy. The coverage amount was $2 million. The applicant was Ellie Young. The beneficiary was the Crestfield Trust. The date on the application was 3 years ago. I stared at the signature at the bottom of the page. It was a scrawl of black ink. It looped and curled in a way that looked familiar. It looked like my signature. But I had not signed it. I looked closer. The Y in Young had a distinct, sharp tail. I had stopped writing my Y like that in high school, but someone who had old yearbooks, old birthday cards, old permission slips, they would remember that Y. Why would someone send this to me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. To show you what they have, Sam said darkly. He picked up the paper, holding it by the corner. Ellie, if you change your name, if you become Ellie Miller, The person insured on this policy ceases to exist in the way they need her to. If the insurance company runs a check and finds out Ellie Young is now Ellie Miller and lives in Harbor Ridge, they might audit the policy. They might see the signature is fake. I looked at the beneficiary again. Crestfield Trust. Crestfield Title Escrow. I said, "The recovery email." Sam looked at me. His eyes were wide. "You aren't just a daughter to them. Ellie, you are an asset. You are a ghost employee, or a ghost borrower, or a ghost policyholder." He slammed his hand down on the counter, making me jump. "That is why they couldn't come to the wedding," he shouted. "It wasn't about being embarrassed. It wasn't about hating you. It was about maintenance. If they showed up, if they acknowledged the wedding, they acknowledged the change. They needed you isolated. They needed you to doubt yourself so much that you wouldn't file the marriage license." I looked at the folder. The wedding wasn't the target. I realized my identity was, they didn't want to ruin my day. They wanted to ruin my ability to leave. I thought about the voicemail from my father. "Don't do this today." He wasn't trying to save me from a bad marriage. He was trying to save himself from a fraud investigation. I looked at Sam. "I am going to that diner," I said. Sam nodded. "I know, and I'm going to record every single word he says." I walked to the window and looked out at the street. Somewhere out there, someone had driven to my building, walked up 3 flights of stairs, and slid this threat through my door. They had violated my home. Fear was still there, cold and sharp, but it was being overtaken by something else, a clarity. They had built a house of cards on my back, and they had made a fatal mistake. They had invited me to knock it down. The Starlight Diner sat on the edge of a 2-lane highway that cut through the endless expanse of cornfields, separating my new life from my old one. It was a chrome and neon relic from the 50s that smelled perpetually of burnt coffee and bacon grease. I saw my father's car in the gravel lot, a silver sedan parked perfectly between the faded white lines, as if he were trying to maintain order in a world that was rapidly disintegrating. Sam pulled our car into a spot on the far side of the building, hidden by a dumpster enclosure. "I am keeping the engine running," Sam said. His hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white. "If you are not out in 30 minutes, I am coming in. I will be fine," I said, though my voice sounded thin in the quiet car. I checked the recording app on my phone. It was running. I slipped the phone into the front pocket of my blazer, the microphone facing out. I walked across the gravel, the stones crunching loudly under my boots. The bell above the diner door chimed as I stepped inside. The air was cool and smelled of sanitizer. It was the lull between breakfast and lunch, and the place was mostly empty, save for a trucker at the counter and an old couple in the corner. My father was sitting in a booth in the back, facing the door. He saw me immediately. He did not smile. He did not wave. He simply watched me approach, his eyes dark and unreadable. He looked older. That was the first thing that struck me. In my memory, my father was a pillar of unshakable strength, a man who never aged, never tired, never faltered, but the man in the booth had gray hollows under his eyes. His skin looked papery. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping near his ear. I slid into the booth opposite him. The red vinyl squeaked beneath me. "Hello, Dad?" I said. He did not say hello. He did not say "you look beautiful" or "I'm sorry I missed your wedding" or "I hope you are happy." "Did you file the marriage license yet?" he asked. His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in days. I stared at him. "That is what you have to say to me? You left an empty chair at my wedding. You humiliated me in front of everyone I know, and you want to know about paperwork? Answer the question." "Ellie," he said. He leaned forward. His hands clasped on the table. They were shaking slightly. "Did you file it?" "No." I lied. "Not yet. We were waiting until we got back from the honeymoon." He let out a breath that sounded like a tire deflating. "Good. That is good. Don't file it." "Why?" I demanded. "Because it complicates things," he said. He picked up a spoon and turned it over and over in his fingers. "Complicates what?" I asked. I leaned in, lowering my voice. "Dad, Someone sent me a life insurance application with a forged signature. Someone hacked my email. Someone told Matt I hate him. He flinched when I mentioned Matt. I know, he said softly. You know? I felt a surge of heat in my chest. You know someone is impersonating me, and you are sitting here asking about a marriage license? It is not that simple, he said. He looked out the window at the passing cars. You don't understand what your name is tied to. Then tell me. I said, explain it to me. Why is my name on a life insurance policy I never asked for? Why is my recovery email a title company in Maple Crest? He looked back at me, and for a second, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. It was terrifying. My father was the man who killed spiders with his bare hands, the man who stared down bank loan officers, the man who never blinked. Seeing him afraid was like seeing a mountain tremble. I can't talk about that here, he said. Then where? I asked. The police station? He reached across the table and grabbed my wrist. His grip was hard, painful. Do not go to the police, he hissed. You need to listen to me. If you file that license, your name changes in the state database. It triggers a notification to the credit bureaus. It triggers an audit. So? I pulled my wrist back. I have nothing to hide. He looked at me with a mix of pity and frustration. You don't, but the family does. I froze. What does that mean? He checked his watch. I have to go. I have a board meeting at 2. You are leaving? I asked, incredulous. You drove an hour to tell me not to get married legally, and now you are leaving? I am telling you to wait, he said. He stood up, smoothing his suit jacket. It hung loosely on his frame. Just wait 6 months. Give us time to untangle some things. And the texts? I asked. The messages Matt got? The email to the florist? Did you send those? He paused in the aisle. He didn't look at me. You need to be careful who you trust. Ellie, he said, that's not an answer. I said, it is the only one I can give you, he said. He walked out of the diner without looking back. I watched him go, feeling a cold knot of dread tighten in my stomach. Be careful who you trust. It sounded like advice, but the way he said it, flat, final, cold, made it feel like a threat. I sat there for 5 minutes, staring at the empty space where my father had been. He hadn't asked about Sam. He hadn't asked about my job. He hadn't even ordered a coffee. He had come on a mission of containment. When I got back to the car, Sam was already on the phone with Mark. He's gone, Sam said into the phone. Yeah. No, she's okay. He hung up and looked at me. You got it? I pulled the phone from my pocket and stopped the recording. I got it. What did he say? He said my name is tied to something. I said, and he begged me not to file the license. He said it would trigger an audit. Sam started the car. An audit of what? That is what we are going to find out. That night, back in our apartment, I couldn't sleep. The city noise outside felt aggressive. Every siren, every honk sounded like a warning. At 2 a.m, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I grabbed it. No caller ID. Hello? I whispered. Ellie? It was my mother. Her voice was barely audible, trembling so hard the syllables blurred together. Mom? I sat up. Mom, are you okay? Please don't come to Maple Crest, she said. She was crying. I could hear the wet, ragged sound of her breath. I know you are angry. I know you want answers. But please, for the love of God, stay away. Why? I asked. Mom, tell me what is going on. Dad met me today. He said, he told me he saw you. She interrupted. She lowered her voice to a whisper. He is trying to fix it. He promised he would fix it. But you have to stay away. If you come here, if you start asking questions, what happens? I asked. The line crackled. I heard a door open in the background on her end. I have to go, she whispered. Just stay away. Ellie, please. The line went dead. I stared at the phone in the dark. He is trying to fix it. Fix what? The next morning, I took the day off work. I couldn't focus on marketing spreadsheets when my family was imploding. I called a local attorney in Harbor Ridge, a woman named Sarah Jenkins who had handled a contract dispute for my firm the year before. She was sharp, discreet, and expensive. I sat in her office, surrounded by walls of legal texts, and played her the recording of my father. I showed her the life insurance application. I showed her the fake emails. She listened in silence, tapping a silver pen against her legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "This is not a family dispute." "Ellie," she said, "this is a criminal enterprise." She turned to her computer. "I am going to run a comprehensive background check, not the consumer kind you get online, the kind we use for litigation. It pulls from county clerk records, business filings, civil suits, everything." She typed for a few minutes. I watched her face. Her expression shifted from professional neutrality to a frown. She picked up the phone on her desk. "Jessica," she said to her assistant, "bring me the file on Crestfield Title, and run a search for Ellie Young in the State Business Registry." She hung up and looked at me. "Ellie, did you ever work for Crestfield Title Escrow?" "No," I said, "never. That is the company in my recovery email." "According to the state filings," Sarah said, turning the monitor so I could see, "you have been listed as a senior consultant for them for the last 5 years." I stared at the screen. There was my name, Ellie Young, listed as an officer of the company, and here, Sarah said, clicking another tab, "You are listed as the co-signer on 3 commercial property loans acquired by the company in 2021. Total value, $4 million. My mouth fell open. $4 million? I rent an apartment. I drive a 6-year-old car. It gets worse, Sarah said. Her voice was quiet now. "Jessica just pinged me. There are filings we can't ignore. There are subpoena records." "Subpoenas?" "The State Attorney General's office opened an investigation into Crestfield Title 6 months ago." Sarah said, "They are looking into predatory lending and deed fraud." She looked at me directly. "Ellie, your name is all over the paperwork. If this investigation goes forward, you aren't just a witness. You are a suspect." I felt the room spin. "That's why they didn't come," I whispered. "They think I'm part of it?" "No," Sarah said. She tapped the screen. "They made you part of it without you knowing. But here's the kicker. Last week, a motion was filed to quash the subpoenas. The argument was that the key witness, the senior consultant, was uncooperative and hostile. Me. I said, "They are using your absence to stall the investigation." Sarah said, "Or, they are setting you up to take the fall." I left the attorney's office feeling like I was walking underwater. My father hadn't just stolen my identity. He had built a shelter out of it to protect himself from the rain. And now that the storm was here, he was locking me outside. I sat in my car and scrolled through my contacts. I needed someone inside. Someone who wasn't my parents or my brother. I stopped on Aunt Lisa. She was my mother's sister. She lived on the other side of Maple Crest. We hadn't spoken in 2 years, but she had always been the one who whispered the family secrets at Thanksgiving. I dialed her number. She answered on the 4th ring. "Hello?" "Aunt Lisa, it's Ellie." There was a long silence. Then a sigh. "I wondered when you would call," she said. Her voice was tired. "Why didn't you come to the wedding?" I asked. I didn't have the energy to be polite. "Ellie, honey, you know why?" She said, "No, I don't." I said, "Tell me." "We got the letters." "Ellie," she said, "What letters?" "The legal notice." She said, "Last week, every member of the family who had money in the Crestfield Trust got a notice. It said that the accounts were frozen pending an investigation initiated by the cooperating witness." She paused. "They told us it was you. Ellie, your father told us. He said you had been working with the state investigators for months. He said you cut a deal. He said you were turning on the family to save yourself from some debt you got into in the city." I gripped the phone. "He told you I was the snitch?" "He showed us the emails," Lisa said. "The ones where you said you were done with us. The ones where you said you were going to burn it all down." "That wasn't me!" I shouted. I almost dropped the phone. "Aunt Lisa, I didn't send those. I didn't know about the investigation until an hour ago. He stole my identity. He put my name on the company documents without asking me. There was silence on the line. I want to believe you. Ellie, she said softly. I really do. But your brother. He showed us the text where you mocked us. It sounded so real. It was fake. I said, tears stinging my eyes. It was all fake. If it is fake, Lisa said, her voice dropping to a whisper, then you need to be very, very careful, because people in this town are losing money, a lot of money, and right now, your face is the one they are blaming. She hung up. I sat there, staring at the dashboard. They didn't just stay away. They were told I was the enemy. My father had orchestrated a masterclass in manipulation. He had used my distance, my silence, and my independence to paint a portrait of a traitor. I drove home. Sam was waiting for me. He looked pale. We need to talk, he said as soon as I walked in. What? I asked. He held up his phone. I need to show you something I should have shown you a month ago. He opened a screenshot. It was a direct message on Instagram from a blank profile. If Ellie changes her name, you'll both regret it. I stared at the message. The date was 4 weeks ago. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. I thought it was spam. Sam said, he looked ashamed. I thought it was just some bot or some crazy ex. It was so vague, and we were so happy. I didn't want to ruin the vibe before the wedding. But now? I asked. Now it looks like a warning shot, he said. It means they were planning this a month ago. I said, they knew the wedding was the deadline. They tried to scare you. When that didn't work, they went after my family. I grabbed my keys. Where are you going? Sam asked. I am going to Maple Crest. I said, Ellie? No. Sam said, your mom said stay away. Your aunt said people are angry. I don't care. I said, I am done hiding. They are using my name. They are using my face. I am going to go there and I am going to show them the real me. I am coming with you. Sam said. We packed a bag. We didn't know if we would be staying. But we needed to be prepared. The drive to Maple Crest took 3 hours. As we crossed the county line, the landscape changed. The highway narrowed. The fields closed in. We pulled into town just as the sun was starting to set. Maple Crest was a picture-perfect Midwestern town. Red brick storefronts, a white gazebo in the square, heavy oak trees lining the streets. But today, the shadows seemed long and sharp. I needed to stop at the grocery store for water. I walked in. Keeping my head down, I felt the eyes immediately. It wasn't paranoia. It was real. 2 women in the produce aisle stopped talking as I walked by. They tracked me with their eyes. I reached for a bottle of water. That's her, a voice muttered. I turned. A man in a John Deere cap was standing near the bakery, whispering to a woman in a cashier's vest. That's the daughter who tried to ruin them, he said. Not quiet enough. I felt a flush of heat rise up my neck. I walked to the checkout. The cashier didn't look at me. She scanned my water in silence. Receipt? She asked, staring at the wall. No, I said. I walked out. My hands were shaking. They know. I told Sam as I got back in the car. Everyone knows. We drove to my parents' house, 402 Oak Street. It was a large, colonial-style house with black shutters and a manicured lawn. It looked perfect. It looked like the home of a successful businessman and his happy family. There were 3 cars in the driveway. My father's silver sedan, my mother's SUV, my brother's truck. They are all here, I said. We walked up the front path. I didn't knock. I used the key I had kept on my ring for 10 years. The key I had never used since I left. I unlocked the door and pushed it open. The house smelled of lemon polish and silence. Mom? Dad? I called out. I walked into the living room. They were sitting there, my mother on the sofa, her hands folded in her lap, my brother in the armchair, staring at the floor. My father was standing by the fireplace, his back to us. They didn't look surprised. They looked resigned. Ellie, my mother said. Her voice was dull. I told you not to come. I walked into the center of the room. Sam stood behind me, a silent guard. I am here, I said. I am here to file my marriage license. I am here to clear my name. And I am here to ask you why you did it." My brother looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed. "Why we did it?" He laughed. A harsh, barking sound. "You are the one who sold us out. Ellie, I didn't sell anyone out," I screamed. I lost my temper. The control I had been holding on to snapped. "I didn't send the texts. I didn't sign the papers. He did." I pointed at my father's back. He turned around slowly. His face was composed now. The fear I had seen in the diner was gone, replaced by a mask of cold disappointment. "You are upset, Ellie," he said calmly. "You are not thinking clearly. Don't gaslight me." I said, "I saw the papers. I saw the life insurance policy. I saw the consultant contract. You used my name to launder money, or to get loans, or whatever you are doing. And when the state came looking, you needed a scapegoat." He shook his head slightly, as if I were a child who had gotten a math problem wrong. "We did what we had to do to protect the family legacy." He said, "Legacy?" I spat the word. "You committed fraud. It was business," he said. "And you were part of this family. You benefited from this family. The college tuition? The car? Where do you think that came from? I have worked since I was 22. I said, I don't owe you anything." He took a step toward me. "You owe us your loyalty," he said. My mother stood up. "Robert, please," she said. Her voice was thin. I looked at her. "Mom, did you know? Did you know he was using my name?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. She looked at the carpet. "He said it was temporary." She whispered. "He said it was just for the paperwork. He said you wouldn't mind helping." "Helping?" I asked. "By facing prison time?" She started to cry. Silent, shaking sobs. I looked at Matt. "And you? You believe I sent those texts? Or do you just need to believe it so you don't have to hate him?" Matt stood up. He looked at our father, then at me. He looked terrified. He threatened to cut me off. Matt said quietly, "He said if I went to the wedding, I was out of the will. I was out of the business. I have kids. Ellie, I have a mortgage." I looked around the room, the beautiful furniture, the expensive curtains, the perfect life. It was all a cage. They weren't just angry at me. They were afraid. They were terrified of the man standing by the fireplace. He had trained them. He had trained them to fear poverty, to fear scandal, and to fear him. And now, he had trained them to see me as the danger, because I was the only one who wasn't under his thumb. I was the only one who could blow the whistle. I took a deep breath. "I am going to file the license," I said. My voice was steady now. "I am going to become Ellie Miller. And if that triggers an audit, then let it trigger an audit." My father's eyes narrowed. "If you do that," he said, his voice dropping to a low growl, "you will destroy this family." "No, Dad," I said. I took Sam's hand. "You already did that." I turned and walked out of the house. I didn't look back. But as I closed the front door, I heard my mother wail, a sound of pure, undiluted grief. I walked to the car, my heart pounding in my ears. They were afraid of me. Good, because they should be. The internet connection in our temporary motel room was slow, but it was fast enough to load the website of the Maple Crest Community Foundation. I sat at the wobbly laminate desk, clicking through the gallery of their recent gala. I saw faces I recognized: the mayor, the high school principal, the local developers, and there, in the center of the widest banner, was my father. He was wearing a tuxedo, holding a champagne flute, his other hand resting possessively on my mother's shoulder. He looked regal. He looked trustworthy. He looked like a man who had nothing to hide. I scrolled down to the caption: Robert Young, Board Treasurer, announces the launch of the new Civic Integrity Initiative. Rumors continue to swirl regarding Mr. Young's potential bid for county supervisor next fall. I felt a cold laugh bubble up in my throat. County supervisor, of course. It made perfect sense. My father had conquered the business world of our small town. Now he wanted the political one, and in Maple Crest. Politics was not about policy. It was about character. It was about being the head of a good, Christian family. It was about stability. A daughter who gets married in a rush in the big city? That is fine. A daughter who creates a scene? A daughter who is financially reckless? A daughter who is estranged? That is a liability, unless you control the narrative. I opened a new tab. I typed in the name of the local gossip blog, The Crest Report. It was run by a woman named Janice, who had been writing about the town's dirty laundry since I was in middle school. The headline was, "Third from the Top, Runaway Daughter. Creates Wedding Drama. Family Chooses Peace." I clicked it. My hand was steady on the mouse, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. Sources close to the Young family report a heartbreaking scene this past weekend. Ellie Young, the estranged daughter of local pillar Robert Young, reportedly orchestrated a chaotic wedding event in Harbor Ridge that left her family with no choice but to step back. Insiders claim the family was disinvited at the last minute via a series of erratic and hurtful messages. They are devastated, a family friend says, but they are choosing to protect their privacy and not engage with her instability. They just want her to get the help she needs. I read the last line 3 times. Get the help she needs. It was a masterstroke. It didn't just explain their absence. It cast me as the villain. It painted me as mentally unwell. If I tried to speak up now, if I tried to tell people about the fraud or the identity theft, I would just look like the crazy daughter lashing out at her saintly parents. They were burying me, and they were using the dirt from my own wedding to do it. Sam came into the room. He was still wearing his suit from work. He had driven back to the city for a mandatory meeting and then driven straight back to Maple Crest to be with me. He looked exhausted. His tie was loosened, and his face was gray. "What is it?" I asked, closing the laptop. Sam sat on the edge of the bed. He stared at his shoes. "I had a meeting with HR today," he said. My stomach dropped. HR? Why? They received an anonymous complaint. Sam said. He looked up at me, his eyes full of a mixture of anger and disbelief. Someone sent an email to the compliance hotline. They claimed that I am engaged in financial misconduct. They said I am leveraging company assets to cover personal debts incurred by my spouse. I stood up. That is a lie. That is a complete lie. I know it is a lie, Sam said, and thankfully, my boss knows it is a lie. The email was vague. It didn't have any evidence. But Ellie, they have to investigate it. It is company policy. I have to turn over my emails. I have to go through an audit. He rubbed his face with his hands. It is a warning shot, he said. I paced the small room. The carpet was sticky. The air smelled of stale cigarettes and lemon cleaner. They are trying to scare us, I said. They are showing us that they can reach us anywhere. They want us to stop digging. They want us to go home, keep our heads down, and let them get away with it. Sam looked at me. Is it working? I stopped pacing. I looked at the man I had married 3 days ago. He was tired. He was scared. He was being dragged into a war he didn't start. No. I said, it is not working. I grabbed my jacket. Where are you going? Sam asked. I am going to the park. I said, I have a meeting. The contact had come through LinkedIn. It was a woman named Brenda who used to work at Crestfield Title Escrow. I had found her profile the night before and sent a desperate message, asking if she knew anything about the ghost file. I didn't know if that was a real term, but I threw it out there, hoping it would stick. She had replied 2 hours later. Meet me at Founders Park. Bench by the duck pond. 4 o'clock. Come alone. It was 4:15 when I arrived. The park was deserted. The sky was overcast, threatening rain, and the wind whipped the fallen leaves into small, frantic tornadoes. I saw a woman sitting on a bench near the water. She was wearing a thick beige coat and a wool hat pulled low over her ears. She was smoking a cigarette, the smoke curling up into the gray air. I approached her slowly. Brenda? She didn't look up. She kept her eyes on the ducks floating in the murky water. Sit down, she said. Don't look at me. Just look at the pond. I sat. The wood of the bench was damp. You are Ellie, she said. I am. You look like him, she said. Around the eyes. I shuddered. I didn't want to look like him. You worked for my father? I asked. I worked for the company, Brenda corrected. Your father doesn't run the day-to-day. He is the silent partner, the money man. Henderson runs the office, but your father pulls the strings. What do you know about my name? I asked. Why is my name on the documents? Brenda took a long drag of her cigarette. She exhaled slowly. Because you were the clean skin, she said. The what? The clean skin, she repeated. In the mortgage game, when you want to push a loan through that might not pass a strict underwriting process, or when you want to buy a property without triggering a conflict of interest, you need a name with a good credit score, a name with no criminal record, a name that looks good on paper. And that was me. I said, you were perfect. Brenda said, you had credit, but no debt. You had an address in the city, which made you look like an outside investor, and most importantly, you were never there. She flicked the ash into the grass. That is the key. Ellie, you were gone. You came home for Christmas for 2 days. You called once a month. You were the ghost daughter. It is easy to use a ghost. You don't ask questions. You don't check the mail. You don't notice when a notary stamp gets used on a signature that isn't yours. How long? I asked. How long have they been doing it? 4 years. She said, maybe 5. It started small. A cosign here, a witness signature there. Then, when the market got hot, they got greedy. They started using your profile to originate loans. They would take out a construction loan in your name, funnel the money into a shell company to pay for a development, and then pay off the loan before you ever got a statement. It was a carousel. Money in, money out. But why did they stop? I asked. Why the panic now? Because the market turned, Brenda said. Interest rates went up. The carousel stopped spinning. They couldn't pay off the last 2 loans. And the state regulators started asking why a graphic designer in the city was buying distressed commercial real estate in Maple Crest. She turned to look at me for the first time. Her face was lined, her eyes tired. They are underwater. Ellie, deep, and your name is the anchor. I felt a wave of nausea. My father, the man who lectured me about saving my allowance, the man who told me that integrity was the only currency that mattered. He had turned me into a mule for his failing business. What about the wedding? I asked. Why ruin the wedding? Brenda laughed. A dry, hacking sound. Because of the name change. Honey, if you became Ellie Miller, the database updates, the social security number gets flagged with a new alias. The credit bureaus merge the files. If you filed that license, the automated systems at the banks would have sent a notification to your new address, your real address. You would have gotten a letter saying, Dear Mrs. Miller, here is the status of your $4 million loan. She stood up, crushing the cigarette butt under her boot. They didn't hate you. Ellie, they were just trying to keep the blindfold on you for a few more months. They thought they could fix it before you found out. But they didn't fix it. I said, No, Brenda said. They just made it worse. She started to walk away. Wait, I called out. Will you testify? If I go to the police, will you tell them this? Brenda stopped. She didn't turn around. I have a pension. Ellie, I have grandkids in this town. If I talk, I lose everything. She pulled her coat tighter. You are on your own, but take my advice. Don't trust the brother. Matt? I asked. Why? Because, Brenda said, her voice carrying over the wind. He is the one who notarized the signatures. I watched her walk away until she disappeared into the mist. Matt, my little brother, the boy I used to build forts with, the boy I protected from our father's temper. I drove to his house. I didn't call first. I knew he would be there. It was Tuesday. Tuesday was his night to watch the kids while his wife went to her yoga class. I parked in the driveway. Through the front window, I could see the glow of the television. I walked up the steps and rang the bell. Matt opened the door. He was holding a sippy cup. He looked startled to see me. Ellie, he said, you shouldn't be here. Mom said, I don't care what Mom said. I interrupted. I pushed past him into the hallway. The house was chaotic. Toys scattered on the floor. The smell of macaroni and cheese. It was the life I thought he had chosen. Simple, messy, happy. We need to talk. I said, "Not here," he whispered, glancing toward the living room where his kids were watching cartoons. We went into the garage. It was cold. The concrete floor was stained with oil. Brenda told me. I said, Matt's face went white. He didn't ask who Brenda was. He knew. "She told me you notarized the signatures." I said, "She told me you stamped my name on $4 million of fraudulent loans." Matt leaned against his workbench. He looked like he was going to vomit. I didn't have a choice. "Ellie, you always have a choice," I shouted. "You could have said no. You could have called me. You could have warned me." He shook his head frantically. "You don't understand, Dad. He has everything. He holds the deed to this house. He co-signed my truck. He employs my wife's sister." "So you sold me out?" I asked. "To keep your truck?" "It wasn't like that," Matt cried. Tears started to stream down his face. "It started as just one paper. Dad said you wouldn't mind. He said it was just a technicality to help the business. I stamped it, and then a month later, there was another one, and another. By the time I realized how deep it was, I was implicated. I was the notary. If I spoke up, I would go to jail too. So you let him ruin my wedding," I said. "You let him gaslight me. You sent me those screenshots." "I didn't send them," Matt said. He grabbed my arm. "Ellie, listen to me. I didn't spoof your phone. He hired someone, a guy from the city. I had to pretend to believe it." "Why?" I asked. "Why couldn't you just show up?" "Because he told me that if I went to the wedding, he would call the bank." Matt whispered. "He said he would default on the payments for this house. He said he would put me on the street. And then he said," he took a jagged breath. "He said you would destroy us if you got married. He said that if you changed your name, the whole house of cards would fall, and I would be the one going to prison for notary fraud. He made me believe that you were the danger. He made me feel like stopping the wedding was the only way to save my kids." I looked at my brother. He was a coward. He was weak, but he was also a victim. My father had weaponized his love for his children to turn him into a criminal. I pulled my arm away from his grip. "I am going to the police." "Matt," I said. "No. Ellie, please," he begged. He dropped to his knees on the concrete. "Please don't. We can fix it. Dad is working on a refinance. He says in 2 months he can pay it all off. Just wait. Please." I looked down at him. "I can't wait," I said, "because now I know what you are capable of." I turned to leave. "Ellie!" he screamed after me. "Ellie, don't do this!" I walked out of the garage. I got into my car. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't get the key in the ignition. I sat there for a moment, breathing in the cold air. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. "I know you are in town. Please come by the house, just for 5 minutes. I have something for you." I stared at the screen. I shouldn't go. I should drive straight to the police station. But I needed to look her in the eye. I needed to hear her say it. I drove to my parents' house. The lights were on. It looked warm and inviting against the gathering dark. My mother met me at the door. She looked small, frail. "Come in," she said. I stepped into the foyer. I didn't take off my shoes. "Matt told me, you know," she said softly. "I know everything. Mom, I know about the loans. I know about the notary stamps. I know about the insurance policy." She nodded slowly. She reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I wanted to show you this," she said. She handed it to me. It was a printout of an email. From Ellie Young, design89@gmail.com, to Linda Young. Date, September 12th, 2024. Subject, please help Mom. I am in trouble, big trouble. I have some debts in the city that I can't pay. Gambling debts. It is bad. I need to disappear for a while. I'm going to change my name after the wedding and try to hide. Please don't tell Dad. Please just let me do this. I am scared. Remember when I was little and I broke the blue vase and we hid the pieces in the garden? This is like that. We have to hide the pieces. I read the email. I felt a chill go down my spine. The blue vase. I had broken a blue vase when I was 7. I was terrified my father would yell. So my mother and I had buried the shards in the rose garden. It was our secret. No one else knew. He used it, I whispered. He must have heard us talking about it years ago. My mother said, her eyes were wet. Ellie, when I got this email, I thought you were in danger. I thought you were running from loan sharks. I thought helping you change your name and hide was what a mother was supposed to do. So you let him forge the signatures? I asked. I thought he was helping you pay off the debts, she said. He told me he was moving money around to cover your mistakes. He said we had to keep it a secret from you so you wouldn't feel ashamed. I stared at her. You believed I was a gambler? I asked. You believed I was a criminal? You believed that I would lie to you? She looked down. It was easier than believing your father was a monster. She whispered, that was the truth. The naked, ugly truth. Avoidance was their religion. Denial was their sacrament. I handed the paper back to her. He wrote this. Mom, I said, he used our secret to manipulate you. He used your love for me to make you an accomplice. She covered her face with her hands and began to weep. I walked to the door. I am sorry. Mom, I said, but I am not the one who needs to hide the pieces anymore. I drove back to the motel. Sam was waiting. He had his laptop open. He had a stack of papers on the desk. I started a log. He said, every text, every voicemail, every date. I pulled the IP addresses from the emails you forwarded me. They all trace back to the Crestfield office. I sat down next to him. Matt confessed. I said, he notarized the signatures. Sam closed his eyes. Oh, God. And my mother. She thought she was saving me. Dad convinced her I was in debt to loan sharks. I looked at Sam. They are all trapped. Sam, he trapped all of them, and now he is trying to trap us. Sam said, he pointed to the screen. I just got an alert from my credit monitoring. Sam said, someone just tried to open a joint account in our names at a bank in the Cayman Islands. I stared at the screen. They are trying to frame us for money laundering. I said, if we wait. Sam said, if we hesitate, he will plant enough evidence to make us look like the masterminds. He will flip the script. He will say we forced him to do it. I stood up. Get your coat. I said, where are we going? The police station. But it is 10 o'clock at night. Sam said, I don't care. I said, I am filing the report now. Tonight, before he can announce his run for office, before he can plant any more evidence, before I lose my nerve. We drove to the county sheriff's station. It was a brick building next to the courthouse. The windows were barred. I walked up the steps. The wind was biting, stinging my cheeks. I thought about the wedding, the empty chairs, the silence. I thought about the little girl who buried the blue vase, terrified of her father's anger. I was not that little girl anymore. I pushed open the heavy glass door. The receptionist looked up from behind a thick pane of bulletproof glass. Can I help you? She asked. I took a deep breath. My name is Ellie Young, I said, and I want to report a theft. What was stolen? She asked, reaching for a form. My life, I said. I filled out the paperwork. My hand did not shake. I listed the unauthorized loans. I listed the forged insurance policy. I listed the identity theft. When I signed my name at the bottom, I didn't sign it with the loop on the Y. I signed it sharp and clear. The deputy on duty came out to take my statement. He was an older man, tired, with coffee stains on his shirt. This is a lot of accusations. Ms. Young, he said, looking over the file. These are prominent people in this town. I know. I said, that is why I need copies of the suspicious loan applications. I need a case number, and I need it tonight. He looked at me. He saw something in my face. Maybe the exhaustion. Maybe the resolve. Okay, he said. Let me start the file. As the printer whirred, spitting out the official record of my complaint, I felt a shift in the air. It was done. The conflict was no longer a secret family drama. It was a matter of public record. It was a case number. I had just declared war on my father. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that he would not go down without burning everything to the ground. I took the papers. I walked out into the night. Sam put his arm around me. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No." I said, "I am not okay." I looked toward the dark outline of the town, where my family was sleeping in their houses, believing they were safe, but I am free. 2 days after I walked out of the sheriff's station, the phone call came. I was at my desk at work, staring at a spreadsheet of quarterly analytics that looked like hieroglyphics. My brain refused to process the numbers. All I could see were the rows of empty chairs at the wedding and the terrifying, flat expression on my brother's face when he admitted to the fraud. My cell phone buzzed against the laminate desktop. It was an unknown number. Usually, I let those go to voicemail, assuming it was a telemarketer or a political campaign, but my nerves were frayed wires, buzzing with a constant, low-level electric hum. I picked it up. "Hello? Is this Ellie Young?" The voice was male, dry, and sounded like it came from inside a cardboard box. "Speaking," I said. "This is Investigator Davis with the State Department of Commerce and Insurance, Financial Regulation Division. I am contacting you regarding an ongoing inquiry into Crestfield Title and Escrow." My stomach didn't just drop. It vanished. The air left the room. This wasn't the local sheriff taking a report to humor a distraught woman. This was the state. Yes, I said. My voice was a croak. I cleared my throat. "I am listening. I cannot share specific details of the investigation at this stage." Davis said. His tone was perfectly neutral, which made it worse. It sounded like he was reading from a script he had read 1,000 times before. "However, your name appears on several documents relevant to our review. I need to ask you a few direct questions to verify the scope of your involvement." My involvement, the word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. "Okay," I said. "Ms. Young, did you authorize anyone to sign binding financial instruments on your behalf between January of 2021 and the present date?" "No." I said, "Never. Did you ever hold the title of senior consultant, strategic advisor, or silent partner at Crestfield Title and Escrow?" "No." I said, "I am a marketing manager. I have never worked in real estate or title insurance." There was a pause. I could hear the click of a keyboard on his end. "One last question for now," he said. "Are you currently in possession of a secure key fob or digital authentication token for the Crestfield corporate banking portal?" I almost laughed. It would have been a hysterical, terrifying sound. "I don't even know what that is." I said, "Thank you. Ms. Young." Davis said, "We may be in touch again. Do not leave the state without notifying us." He hung up. "Do not leave the state." I lowered the phone slowly. I looked around the open-plan office. My coworker, Sarah, was eating a yogurt and typing. The printer was humming in the corner. The sun was shining on the ficus plant by the window. Everything looked normal, but I was standing in the center of a blast radius, and the shockwave had just hit. They thought I was part of it. The questions weren't designed to clear me. They were designed to catch me in a lie. They had documents. They had my name. They had a digital trail that my family had spent years meticulously constructing. I grabbed my purse. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't pretend to care about click-through rates when I was a suspect in a financial crimes investigation. I told my boss I had a migraine, which wasn't entirely a lie, and drove home. When I got to my apartment building in Harbor Ridge, I saw a car parked in the loading zone. It was a silver sedan. Clean, nondescript. My father's car. I froze on the sidewalk. My first instinct was to run, to turn around, get back in my car, and drive until I ran out of gas. But then I remembered the investigator's voice. "Do not leave the state." I walked to the front door of the building. My father was standing in the vestibule, waiting for someone to buzz him in. He saw me approaching. He didn't look angry. He didn't look like the man who had threatened me in the diner. He looked calm. He was wearing a soft cashmere sweater and slacks. He looked like a grandfather stopping by to drop off a birthday gift. "Ellie," he said as I opened the door. "What are you doing here?" I asked. I stood in the doorway, blocking his path to the inner lobby. We need to finish our conversation, he said. His voice was gentle, controlled. It was the voice he used when he was teaching me to drive. Calm and instructive, hiding the fact that he was terrified I would scratch the paint. I have nothing to say to you. I said, I filed a police report. Dad, I talked to an investigator today. It is over. It is not over, he said. It is just beginning. Can we go upstairs? I don't think you want to discuss this in the lobby. I looked at Mrs. Gable, my neighbor, who was checking her mail. She glanced at us curiously. Fine, I said. I led him up to the 3rd floor. I unlocked my apartment door. He walked in and looked around. He had never been to my apartment before. He looked at the sage green walls, the secondhand rug, the photos of Sam and me on the fridge. He looked at it like an anthropologist studying a primitive culture. It is nice, he said. Small, but nice. Cut the act. Dad, I said. I stood by the kitchen island, putting the granite between us. What do you want? He turned to face me. He placed his hands in his pockets. I want to offer you a solution, he said. A solution to what? To the felonies you committed in my name? To the misunderstanding, he corrected. He pulled a chair out from the table and sat down. Uninvited. Look, Ellie, I know you are angry. You have every right to be. We made mistakes. We cut corners. The market was volatile, and we did what we had to do to keep the business and the family afloat. You stole my identity. I said, we borrowed it. He said, and we intended to put it back. But things got complicated. He leaned forward. Here is the offer. Ellie, I have liquidated some assets. I have enough cash to pay off every single loan attached to your name, the construction loans, the lines of credit, everything. I can zero out the balance by Friday. I stared at him. You can pay it off? Yes. And not just that. There is enough left over to put a down payment on a house for you and Sam. A real house, not an apartment, a place in a good school district. I felt a wave of dizziness. He was trying to buy me. And I will fix the family situation. He continued, I will talk to your mother. I will talk to Matt. We will issue a statement saying the wedding mix-up was a communication error. We will welcome Sam. We will be the family you wanted us to be. He smiled. It was a terrifying smile because it didn't reach his eyes. His eyes were dead. And what do I have to do? I asked. Just one thing, he said. He reached into his inner pocket and pulled out a pen. Don't file the marriage license, he said. I looked at the pen. Why? I asked. Why is that the one thing that matters? Because, he said, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. Right now, Ellie Young is a separate entity. She exists in the old records. If you file that license, you become Ellie Miller. The state database updates. The Social Security Administration updates. It creates a bridge. Ellie, a digital bridge connecting your new clean identity to the old one. So, he said, if you file it, the systems merge. The algorithm runs a sweep, and when it sees that Ellie Miller lives in Harbor Ridge, but Ellie Young has been signing documents in Maple Crest, it flags a discrepancy. It triggers an audit, not a human audit, a machine audit. And the machines don't listen to explanations. I realized then what this was. It wasn't about the wedding. It wasn't about him hating Sam. It wasn't about me being unstable. It was about the database. He needed Ellie Young to stay frozen in carbonite. He needed her to be a ghost that he could control. If I became Ellie Miller, I became a real person with a real paper trail, and his puppet strings would snap. The marriage license isn't a piece of paper to you. I said, it is a trigger. It is a match in a powder keg, he said. He stood up and placed a check on the counter. It was face down. That is $50,000, he said, a gesture of good faith. For the house. I looked at the check. I looked at my father. He wasn't sorry. He was just negotiating the price of my silence. Get out, I said. Ellie, be reasonable. Get out, I screamed. I grabbed the check and ripped it in half. I threw the pieces at him. Get out of my house before I call the police and tell them you are here trying to bribe a witness. He stared at the torn paper on the floor. His jaw tightened. The mask slipped, just for a second, revealing the snarl underneath. "You are making a mistake," he said coldly. "You are choosing to destroy us." I walked to the door and held it open. "I am choosing to survive you," I said. He walked out. He didn't look back. I slammed the door and locked the deadbolt. I leaned against the wood, sliding down until I hit the floor. I hugged my knees to my chest. I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered. He was scared. He was desperate, and that made him dangerous. Sam came home an hour later. He found me sitting on the floor, surrounded by the pieces of the check. "What happened?" he asked, dropping his bag. "My dad was here," I said. Sam's face went dark. He touched the door lock, checking it. "Did he hurt you?" "No," I said. "He offered to buy us a house." I explained the offer. I explained the logic of the marriage license. Sam listened, his face growing redder with every word. When I finished, he kicked the kitchen cabinet hard enough to leave a scuff mark. "That son of a bitch," Sam spat. "He wants to pay us off? He ruins our wedding. He terrorizes you. He commits fraud. And he thinks he can write a check and make it go away? He wants me not to file the license," I said. "He said it will trigger a machine audit." "Good," Sam yelled. "Let it trigger. Let the whole thing blow up." He paced the small kitchen. "We are going to the authorities. Ellie, tomorrow morning, we are going to tell them everything. We are going to tell them he tried to bribe you. We are going to hand them his head on a platter." I sat at the table, picking at a loose thread on my sweater. "I can't," I whispered. Sam stopped pacing. He looked at me. "What do you mean? You can't?" "Sam, if I turn them in, fully turn them in, it is not just him," I said. "It is my mom. She signed things too. It is Matt. He notarized them. If I drop the hammer, Matt goes to prison. His kids go into foster care or get raised by his wife alone. And she hates me. My mom. She is 60 years old. She can't survive jail." Sam stared at me. He looked like I had just slapped him. "Ellie, they threw you to the wolves," he shouted. "Matt sent those screenshots. Your mom ghosted you. They don't care about you. Why are you protecting them?" "I am not protecting them," I cried. Standing up, "I am protecting myself from the guilt. Do you think I want to be the reason my niece and nephew grow up without a father? Do you think I want to visit my mother through a plexiglass window? So what is the alternative?" Sam asked, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "We take the money? We don't get married legally? We live in sin so your dad can keep laundering money?" "No," I said. "I don't want the money." "Then what?" "I don't know," I screamed. "I don't know." I grabbed my keys. I needed air. I needed to get away from the impossible math of the situation. "I am going for a drive," I said. "Ellie, wait. Don't follow me," I said. I drove without a destination for 20 minutes. The city lights blurred into streaks of red and white. My phone pinged. It was a text from my mother. "I am at the Target on Route 4. Please, she must have driven up with my father. She must be waiting while he tried to buy me off." I turned the car around. The Target parking lot was vast and brightly lit, a sea of asphalt under the humming sodium lights. I saw her SUV parked in the back row, away from the store entrance. I pulled up next to her. I rolled down my window. She rolled down hers. She looked terrible. Her eyes were swollen. Her hair, usually sprayed into a perfect helmet, was flat and messy. "Get in," she whispered. I turned off my car and climbed into her passenger seat. The car smelled of her perfume, lavender and stale anxiety. "Did he talk to you?" she asked. "He offered me money," I said. "He told me not to file the license." She nodded, staring at the steering wheel. "He said it was the only way." "Mom," I said. I looked at her profile. "Why didn't you come to the wedding?" "The real reason. Not the text messages. Not the embarrassment." "Why?" She took a shaky breath. She picked at the leather of the steering wheel. "Because he told us the investigators were coming that weekend." She said, "He said you had tipped them off. He said you had set it up so that they would raid the office while we were all out of town at the wedding. He said it was a trap." "A trap?" I asked. horrified. "He said you wanted to humiliate us," she whispered. "He said you wanted us all arrested in our formal wear. He made it sound so plausible." "Ellie, he said you were angry about how we treated Sam. He said you were vindictive. And you believed him?" I asked. "Over me?" She turned to look at me. Her eyes were full of a desperate, pleading pain. I was scared. "Ellie, he was so sure. And Matt was panicking. He said if we went, we were walking into an ambush, so we stayed. We locked the doors and turned off the phones and waited for the police to come." "But the police didn't come." I said. "No." She said, "They didn't. And then we got the screenshot of your text canceling the wedding. And part of me was relieved. Because if you canceled it, then you weren't trapping us. You were just angry." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had raised me, the woman who had bandaged my knees and braided my hair. "Mom," I said. The most painful question was sitting on my tongue, tasting like poison. "Did you ever try to check? Did you ever pick up the phone and call me to ask if it was true?" She flinched. She looked back out the windshield. "No," she whispered. "Why?" "Because," she said, her voice barely audible, "I didn't want it to be true, but I was afraid it was. And if I called you, and you confirmed it, then I would have to choose. I would have to choose between you and your father, and I couldn't do that. I can't survive without him. Ellie, I don't know how to write a check. I don't know how to pay the mortgage. He handles everything. Survival. It wasn't malice. It was pathetic, cowardly survival. She had sacrificed her daughter to keep her comfortable life. She reached into her purse. "I brought you something else," she said. She handed me a manila envelope. "He doesn't know I have this," she said. "I took it from his study. I thought you should see what you are up against." I opened the envelope. It was a loan modification agreement from 6 months ago. The loan amount was $500,000. At the bottom of the page was the signature line, "Ellie Young." I looked at the signature. It was black ink. It was legible. And there it was. The Y. The tail of the Y looped back up and crossed over the stem. A big, open loop. I stared at it. I stopped writing my Y like that when I was 16. I had decided it looked childish, so I switched to a sharp, straight tail. But my mother had always loved my handwriting. She used to save my school papers. She knew exactly how I used to write. I looked at the rest of the form. The date, the address. The handwriting wasn't my father's jagged scrawl. It was neat, rounded, precise. It was the handwriting that had filled out my permission slips. It was the handwriting that had signed my report cards. It was the handwriting that wrote love, Mom, on every birthday card I had ever received. I looked up at her. The air in the car felt suddenly thin, like we were at a high altitude. "You signed this," I said. She didn't speak. She just started to cry again. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "Dad didn't forge my signature." "You did. He made me practice." She sobbed. "He sat me down at the kitchen table with your old yearbooks. He made me trace it over and over until it looked right. He said his hand was too heavy. He said mine was more like yours. I felt like I was going to throw up." I looked at the paper again. I imagined her sitting at the kitchen table, the table where we used to eat pancakes, tracing my name, practicing how to steal my life. "You did it," I whispered. "You actually did it. I had to." She wept. "He said we would lose the house. He said we would lose everything. You lost me," I said. I opened the door and stepped out into the cold parking lot. "Ellie," she called after me. "Ellie, please, take the money. Just take the money and be safe." I slammed the door. I walked back to my car. I threw the envelope onto the passenger seat. I sat there for a long time, staring at the Target sign, the red bullseye glowing in the night. It wasn't just him. It was both of them. It was the whole family unit. It was a cancer, and it had metastasized. I drove home. Sam was sitting on the couch where I had left him. He looked up when I walked in. He saw my face, And he stood up immediately. "What?" he asked. I walked over to the desk. I picked up the marriage license. It was still in its crisp white envelope, waiting to be filed. "We are doing it," I said. Sam looked at the license, then at me. "Are you sure?" he asked. You said Matt." I know what I said. I cut him off. But I just realized something. I held up the license. "This isn't just a legal document. Sam, it is an amputation knife." I told him about the handwriting. I told him about my mother practicing my signature at the kitchen table. They didn't just betray me. "Sam," I said, my voice hard and cold. "They consumed me. They ate my identity to feed their own. And if I don't file this, if I don't become Ellie Miller, they will keep eating me until there is nothing left but the collateral damage." Sam said softly. I looked at him. "I am the collateral damage." I said, "And I am done bleeding for them." I grabbed my coat. "Where are we going?" Sam asked. "To the county clerk's office." I said, "It is closed." He said, "They have a night drop box." I said, "For expedited filing." We drove to the courthouse in silence. The building was dark, looming against the night sky like a fortress. I walked up the stone steps. My shoes clicked loudly on the pavement. I found the metal slot in the wall. Official filings only. I held the envelope in my hand. I knew what this meant. As soon as this envelope dropped into that box, it was over. The timer would start. The clerk would open it in the morning. She would type Ellie Miller into the system. The state database would blink. The algorithm would wake up. The audit would begin. My father would be exposed. My mother would be exposed. Matt would be exposed. The scandal would destroy the family name. The house on Oak Street would be sold. The legacy would turn to ash. I hesitated. My hand hovered over the slot. I felt a phantom pain in my chest, a longing for the parents I wished I had, the family I had tried so hard to please. But then I remembered the empty chairs. I remembered the voice on the voicemail. "Don't do this today." I remembered my mother's handwriting, tracing my name to sign away my future. I looked at Sam. He was standing at the bottom of the steps, watching me. He wasn't pushing me. He was just waiting. I wasn't Ellie Young anymore. Ellie Young was a victim. Ellie Young was a ghost. I was Ellie Miller. I pushed the envelope through the slot. I heard it slide down the metal chute, a soft thud as it hit the bottom of the box. It was done. I stepped back. I felt a rush of vertigo, like I had just stepped off a cliff into the dark. I didn't know where I would land. I didn't know who would survive the fall. But as I walked down the steps to take my husband's hand, I knew one thing. I wasn't falling alone. The morning sun hit the marble steps of the county clerk's office with a brightness that felt aggressive. I had dropped the envelope in the box the night before. A covert act performed in the dark, but the daylight demanded verification. I needed the certified copy. I needed the piece of paper that proved, legally and irrevocably, that Ellie Young was now a matter of historical record, and Ellie Miller was the living, breathing woman standing at the counter, the clerk, a woman with glasses on a chain and a patience worn thin by years of bureaucracy, pushed the ledger toward me. "Sign here, please," she said. Both names, the old and the new. I picked up the pen. My hand hovered over the paper. It was not a tremble of doubt. I loved Sam. I wanted to be his wife, but my hand shook with the seismic weight of what this signature would do. I was not just signing a marriage license. I was signing a warrant. I was lighting the fuse on a bomb that had been sitting under my family's house for 5 years. I wrote Ellie Young for the last time. The letters looked jagged. Then, next to it, I wrote Ellie Miller. I watched the ink dry. It looked like freedom. "Here is your certified copy," the clerk said, stamping the document with a heavy, rhythmic thud. The sound echoed in the high ceilings of the hall. "Congratulations." "Thank you," I whispered. I took the paper. It felt heavy, like it was made of lead. I walked out through the heavy oak doors and onto the courthouse steps. The air was crisp, smelling of autumn leaves and city exhaust. Sam was waiting in the car at the bottom of the stairs. But before I could reach him, my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. I pulled it out. Unknown caller. I stopped on the third step. I swiped the green button. Hello? If you file it. They will blame you for everything. The voice was distorted, genderless, digital. It sounded like it was coming from a machine. Who is this? I asked, gripping the railing. It doesn't matter, the voice said. The paperwork is the trigger. Once it enters the system, the narrative changes. They aren't going to say they stole your identity, Ellie. They are going to say you gave it to them. And then you ran away when the debt got too heavy. I filed it. I said into the phone, I just walked out. It is done. There was a pause, a silence that felt heavy and cold. Then God help you, the voice said. The line went dead. I stood there, the phone pressed to my ear, looking out at the city square. The wind bit at my face. They will blame you for everything. It was the final card they had left to play. If they couldn't silence me, they would frame me. I walked down the stairs and got into the car. Did you get it? Sam asked. I held up the certified license. I got it. I didn't tell him about the call. He was already carrying enough weight. 2 days later, the silence broke. I was at home, working remotely, trying to ignore the gnawing anxiety in my gut. When my phone rang, it was Investigator Davis again. Ms. Miller? He asked. It was the first time an official had used my new name. It sounded strange. Yes, I said. We have received a notification from the State Vital Records Department regarding your name change, Davis said. His voice was sharper than before. More urgent. This update has triggered a cross-reference in our system regarding the Crestfield title and escrow inquiry. I held my breath. We have found multiple discrepancies in the timeline. Davis continued. Signatures attributed to Ellie Young were notarized on dates when Ellie Miller was verifiably out of the state. We have flight records. We have credit card receipts. The physical impossibility of your presence at these signings is now a matter of record. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. So you know it wasn't me? I asked. We know you weren't in the room, Ms. Miller, Davis said, but we need to know who was. We are upgrading this inquiry to a formal criminal investigation. We will be issuing subpoenas for the principals of Crestfield Title within the hour. He paused. If you have any contact with your family, Ms. Miller, I would advise you to document it. When the pressure applies, people tend to fracture. He hung up. The machine was working. My father had been right. The database had updated. The algorithm had run its sweep, and the lie had been exposed by the simple, stubborn fact of geography. I didn't have to wait long for the fracture. My father called me that evening. I was in the kitchen making tea. The sun had gone down, and the apartment was filled with blue shadows. I looked at the screen. Dad. I put the phone on the counter and put it on speaker. Sam stood in the doorway, his arms crossed, listening. Hello, Dad, I said. You killed us, he said. His voice was unrecognizable. It wasn't the controlled, smooth voice of the businessman. It wasn't the gentle, manipulative voice of the father. It was a guttural, raw sound, like an animal caught in a trap. I didn't kill anyone, I said, my voice steady. I filed a marriage license. I started my life. You triggered the audit, he shouted. The sound distorted on the speaker. The subpoenas arrived an hour ago. Ellie, they are demanding everything. The ledgers, the hard drives. They are going to freeze the accounts. You should have thought of that before you forged my signature. I said, I didn't forge anything, he screamed. I was protecting the legacy. I built this from nothing. I worked for 40 years to give you that life, to give you that education. And this is how you repay me? By burning it down because you felt left out of a wedding? It wasn't about the wedding, I said. It was about the fraud. It was about your role, he roared. You were supposed to understand your role. Ellie, you were the silent partner. You were the safety net. You were supposed to be grateful that we included you in the success. I froze. Included me? I asked quietly. You used me. You used my name as a shield so you could break the law. That isn't inclusion. Dad, that is predation. You are a selfish, ungrateful child. He spat. And when this goes to court, I will make sure everyone knows it. I will tell them you authorized it. I will tell them you begged for the money. I will tell them you are the one who ruined us." He hung up. The kitchen was silent. Sam walked over and put his hand on my shoulder. "He is terrified." Sam said, "I looked at the phone. He called me a tool." I whispered, "He said I was supposed to understand my role." That night, sleep was impossible. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation. The sheer entitlement of it. He truly believed that my identity belonged to him. He believed that my credit score, my name, my reputation were just assets in his portfolio to be liquidated when necessary. The next morning, my brother called. "Ellie? Matt," I said, "I am not changing my mind." I know, he said. He was crying. I could hear the hitch in his breath. "But Ellie, please, I just talked to Dad. He is talking about prison time. He is talking about me losing the house. You should have thought of that when you stamped the papers." I said, "I didn't know," he wailed. "I didn't know it would get this bad. Ellie, listen, we have a plan. Dad talked to the lawyer." I closed my eyes. Of course they had a plan. "If you just say you knew," Matt said, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. "If you just sign a statement saying you gave verbal authorization for us to sign on your behalf, that is all it takes. It turns it from a criminal case into a civil misunderstanding. We pay a fine. We pay back the loans. It goes away." "And what happens to me?" I asked. "Nothing," Matt promised. "You just get a reprimand. Maybe a bad mark on your credit for a few years. But we will pay you. Ellie, we will pay you double whatever the fine is." "You want me to perjure myself?" I asked. "You want me to tell the FBI that I was an accomplice to bank fraud?" "It is not fraud if you authorized it," Matt pleaded. "Just say you authorized it, please. Ellie, for my kids. Do you want your nephew to visit his dad in a federal prison?" I felt a cold rage spread through my chest. They were using the kids again. They were using love as a hostage. "Matt," I said, "I want you to listen to me very carefully. I am listening. I am not going to set myself on fire to keep you warm." I said, "Not anymore." I hung up. 2 hours later, the email arrived. It was from my parents' family attorney, a man named Mr. Henderson, the same man who ran the title company. Subject: Settlement Conference, Ms. Miller. In light of the recent inquiries from the state, your family requests a private meeting to discuss a potential resolution that avoids prolonged litigation. We have booked the conference room at the offices of Jenkins Associates in Harbor Ridge for tomorrow at 10 a.m. This is a neutral location. Please attend. I showed it to Sam. "We are going." I said, "Are you sure?" Sam asked. "We don't have to. I need to finish this." I said, "I need to look them in the eye one last time." The conference room at Jenkins Associates was glass-walled and sterile. It smelled of floor wax and old coffee. When Sam and I walked in, they were already there. My father sat at the head of the long mahogany table. He was wearing his best suit, but it looked loose on him now. His face was gray. My mother sat to his right. She was staring at her hands, which were twisting a handkerchief into a tight knot. Matt sat next to her. He wouldn't look up. He was shaking his leg nervously, the vibration shaking the water pitcher on the table. Mr. Henderson, the lawyer, sat at the other end. He stood up when we entered. "Ellie, thank you for coming," he said smoothly. I didn't shake his hand. I sat down in the empty chair opposite my father. Sam sat next to me. "Let's make this quick," my father said. He didn't say hello. He didn't look at Sam. "Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. "The situation is critical," he began. "The state investigators have flagged over $4 million in irregular transactions. The documentation is problematic." He looked at me. "However," he continued, "the investigation hinges on the premise of unauthorized activity. If the activity was authorized, retroactively or otherwise, the criminal liability evaporates. It becomes an internal family accounting dispute." He slid a piece of paper across the table toward me. "This is an affidavit," Henderson said. "It states that you, Ellie Miller, granted power of attorney to your father, Robert Young, and your mother, Linda Young, for all real estate transactions between 2021 and the present. I looked at the paper. It was a lie. A single page that would save them and ruin me. If you sign this, my father said, his voice hard, we transfer the deed to the lake house into your name today. It is worth $600,000. We also pay off the loans immediately. You walk away with a house and a clean slate. I looked at the paper. Then I looked at my mother. Mom, I said. She flinched. She finally looked up. Her eyes were red and watery. Did you trace my signature? I asked. She froze. The room went deadly silent. What? Henderson asked, looking confused. My mother? I said, keeping my eyes on her. She practiced my signature. She sat at the kitchen table and traced it from my high school yearbook until she could forge it perfectly. I reached into my bag and pulled out the loan modification agreement she had given me in the car. I slid it across the table. That is not my signature. I said, that is yours. Mom, I can tell by the loop on the Y. My father turned to look at my mother. He looked furious that she had given me the evidence. Linda, he snapped. She started to cry. I had to. She whispered, you told me to. I looked at Matt. And you? I said, you notarized it. You put your official stamp on a document you knew was forged by our mother. Matt put his head in his hands. This is a settlement conference. Henderson interrupted, looking pale. We are not here to litigate the past. We are here to find a path forward. Ellie, if you don't sign this, the consequences for your family are catastrophic. They are asking you to save them, Sam said. His voice was calm, but I could feel the heat radiating off him. But they are asking you to do it by becoming a criminal yourself. I looked at my father. You want me to lie, I said. I want you to be a daughter, he shouted, slamming his hand on the table. You owe us this. After everything we gave you, you are going to send your mother to jail? You are going to destroy my reputation? Over what? Over money? It is not about money, I said. Then what is it? He demanded. What do you want? Ellie, do you want an apology? Fine. I am sorry. I am sorry we used your name. Now sign the paper. He pushed the affidavit toward me. The room felt like a stage. They were all playing their parts. The domineering father, the weeping mother, the cowardly brother, the fixer lawyer. They had rehearsed this. They had decided that if they pushed hard enough, if they yelled loud enough, if they offered enough money, I would fold. I had always folded before. I had always been the quiet one, the one who wanted peace. But I wasn't that person anymore. I stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. I looked at the affidavit. I picked it up. For a second, I saw hope in my father's eyes. He thought I was going to sign it. I ripped the paper in half. Then I ripped it again. Ellie, Matt cried out. I dropped the pieces on the polished table. I looked at my father. He was staring at me like I was a stranger, like he had never seen me before in his life. I will not carry this, I said. The words hung in the air. They were simple. 6 words, but they felt heavy, like stones dropping into a deep well. I will not carry your lies. I will not carry your debts. I will not carry your guilt. My father's face turned a violent shade of purple. You are walking away? He hissed. You are leaving us to die? I am leaving you to the consequences of your own actions. I said. I turned to my mother. I hope it was worth it. Mom, I said, the house, the club membership, the peace, I hope it was worth losing me. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed. Come on, Sam, I said. We walked toward the door. You walk out that door. My father screamed after me. And you are dead to us. Do you hear me? Dead. I didn't turn around. I reached for the handle. As I opened the glass door, I saw movement in the lobby. 3 men in dark suits were walking toward the reception desk. They moved with a quiet, synchronized purpose. One of them was holding a leather portfolio. Another was holding a badge that caught the light. State investigators. I heard one of them say to the receptionist, We are looking for Robert Young, Linda Young, and Matthew Young. We have warrants for the seizure of electronic devices and business records." I stopped. I looked back into the conference room. My father was still standing at the head of the table, his face twisted in rage, screaming at my empty chair. He didn't see them coming. My mother was weeping. Matt was staring at the wall, looking like a ghost. I felt the ground shift. The invisible machine that had been running beneath our feet for 5 years had finally ground to a halt. I looked at Sam. "Is that them?" he whispered. "That's them," I said. We stepped aside to let the investigators pass. They didn't look at us. They walked straight into the conference room. I heard the sudden silence that fell over the room as the men entered. I heard my father stop screaming. I heard the lawyer gasp. I didn't stay to watch. I took Sam's hand, and we walked out of the building, into the bright, blinding sunlight of the parking lot. I took a deep breath. The air tasted like exhaust and rain. But to me, it tasted like oxygen. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. I wasn't Ellie Young, the daughter who hid the pieces of the broken vase. I was Ellie Miller. And for the first time in my life, my hands were empty. I wasn't carrying anything that didn't belong to me. I got into the car, started the engine, and drove away, leaving the wreckage in the rearview mirror where it belonged. Thank you so much for listening to this story. It was a long journey for Ellie, but she finally found her voice. I would love to know what you would have done in her situation. Would you have signed the paper to save your family? Or would you have walked away like she did? Please let me know in the comments where you are listening from today. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Share your thoughts in English in the comments below. Until next time.